What's up YouTube, DeMi here on LemonPrime, my level 98 Blast Rain Pathfinder. This is going to be the build guide for the character. The point of the character was to stack as much elemental penetration and lightning penetration as possible to get a massive amount of just basically true damage, more or less ignoring resistances just like Inquisitor does, while also getting huge defensive bonuses from our flasks as well. So we'll start with the Ascendancy points. I pick up Veteran Boyer for 10% of Fizz as extra damage of a random element. This just gives us extra damage. It doesn't show up on the tooltip because it's random per hit that you do. So my physical damage gives me 10% extra elemental damage. You also get 10% elemental penetration across all elements, so that's fire, cold, and lightning. It's great. And enemies that we kill that are affected by elemental status ailments give us 100% increased flash charges, so that means that anything you kill that is ignited, shocked, or frozen, you get double flash charges from, which is amazing. You also get some attack damage and flask effect here. Then I pick up some more Flask Effect Duration and Flask Effect here. And then Nature's Adrenaline for 15% move speed and 20% attack speed while using a flask. These nodes, Nature's Boom gives us 8% reduced elemental damage taken. This means that even when you're capped on res, you take 8% less damage as well, which is equivalent to about 2% less damage taken from the 25% that you've already taken. So it gives you 77% all res, sort of. You also get passive flash charge generation, and then you have a 20% chance for your flask to just not use any charges at all. So if I use this Vinktars, didn't get a trigger there. If I use this, no trigger there. Like that. See that didn't go down the second time? That's because I procced the 20% chance. So sometimes you just get extra flasks. It's pretty nice. Then we get more flask effect here and more charges gained. And then Massacre Alchemist, which is pretty strong for us. You get 40% increased elemental damage while using a flask. And then immunity to ailments, so you're immune to shock, freeze, and ignite, which is pretty helpful for defensive purposes. You don't have to roll that on your flasks at all, you just need to worry about Bleed Flask, which I have right here. So that's the Ascendancies. The tree, you start as Ranger, you go through projectile damage, attack speed nodes, grab Ballistic Mastery. This is not really a leveling guide, it's just what I currently have. Grab Aspects of the Eagle for Fizz, movement speed, and accuracy rating. Primal Spirit for flash charges gained, Strength and Int, Druidic Rite, and Finesse. This is attack speed accuracy. This is for flash charges gained and flask effect duration. Quick Step, because I really like movement speed, I grabbed as many movement speed nodes as I possibly could, along with as many jewel sockets as I could. Come down here, grab Forces of Nature to give a bunch of weapon elemental damage, as well as 6% elemental penetration for all types of elements, so that's right here. We also have Crit with Bows, Physical Strike with Physical Damage with Bows, and Critical Strike Chance with Bows. Come up here to grab the attack speed and Fizz damage with Bows nodes for Deadly Draw. This is a really strong node by itself. 12% attack speed is insane. Then we grab Crit Chance, Crit Multi, and a Jewel Socket. We'll go over the jewels after the tree. Then you go up here, grab Vol Pact, so that our leech flies instantly. You don't have to worry about slowly going back to full health. If we hit something, we're at full, which is great. And then here we have some more movement speed. This is 9% movement speed for 4 points. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. You get 9% move speed, and then you get 56% increased Fizz damage, which is pretty good for that many points. Come up here, grab Coordination for attack speed, Reel of Blades for physical damage and critical strike chance, Pangs of the Viper, more physical damage and movement speed. We get 30% proj damage here with Sniper, and then a bunch of ES, attack damage, crit multi, critical strike chance, and elemental damage, critical strike chance. Come up here for some more weapon elemental damage. This is specifically lightning damage because we are trying to be mostly lightning damage. And this gives us 8% additional lightning penetration with weapons, which is why this number is bigger than the 6% numbers. Then we grab another jewel socket, another jewel socket, another jewel socket. The energy shield nodes of Witch Dart, which are insanely OP for their point cost. And then we get the AoE damage and area damage and AoE nodes here, blast radius. Flask effect nodes, of course, because we want as strong as flasks as we can get. Another jewel socket. Influence, because we need a little bit of reduced mana reserve to run this many auras. Grab CI, of course, you have to be CI to make this build work correctly. If you do the life-based version of this build, you end up with like 4k life and way less damage on the tree, so it sucks. Ghost Reaver, so we can leech to our energy shield, and then another jewel socket. So for jewels, I went for, specifically I wanted attack speed with bows as the main damage role. So most of my gems have that role, and then they have 3 other relevant damage scaling things for us. So things that scale us are physical damage, crit multi with fire skills, crit multi with elemental skills, area damage, projectile damage, physical damage with bows. Any attack speed roll is fine, but I wanted specifically the 8% attack speed roll because it's 6 to 8% versus 3 to 5% on the other rolls, so it's just much better. This is a similar duel: attack speed, phys damage, crit multi, proj damage. Attack speed, crit multi with fire, proj area damage. I didn't mention area damage, that's another thing that scales us. Same thing here. Attack speed, proj area, phys damage with bows. This one is the same. Attack speed with bows, phys multi, area damage. And then this one's the one that I'm still working on replacing. It's attack speed with bows, phys area damage, but then I exalted hybrid accuracy and global critical strike chance, which is okay, but not a damage roll, so I will be replacing that at some point. I believe this one's the same as well. Oh yeah, this one needs replaced too. Damage, lightning damage, attack speed with bows, area damage. So the lightning damage is not specifically, or not generic enough to give us the most like scaling, but that's okay. It'll be replaced at some point. They're really expensive to craft. If you don't have 4 property jewels, just use 3 property jewels. So gear, we'll go over the links first, I guess. The main 6 link for your blast rain is blast rain. Weapon elemental damage, increased critical strikes, phys to lightning, and lightning penetration. For the 6th link, you can use physical projectile attack damage or faster attacks. It doesn't really make that much of a tooltip difference. Like here, it's 51k. PPAD puts it to 56k, so it is better to use PPAD, but it attacks really slowly. Like this is without faster attacks. It's a little bit too slow for my liking, so I tend to use faster attacks. So that's the main 6th link. My aura setup, I'm using Haste, Discipline, Clarity level 1, and Enlighten. Clarity is mostly there because it's blue. You don't really need the Clarity. I just like the extra little spinny effect. So basically just Haste, Discipline, and Enlighten. Our reservation nodes and our Skyforce allow us to reserve all of that with no issues, so that makes us run faster, attack faster, and you need this ES because it's kind of hard to get this much ES without it. Other links, I'm using a Herald of Ice Curse on Hit Poacher's Mark setup. This allows us to generate frenzy charges while killing packs in maps, so we attack faster, we deal more damage, and it's just better clear speed that way. You also get 100% increased flash charges from those enemies, so along with the 100% increased flash charges gained from killing enemies affected by status ailments, we have a lot of extra flash charges gained. We have 60% plus this 100%, which isn't shown in the tree, or in the passive menu, and then we have another 100% from Poacher's Mark, so that's 260% flash charges gained. If you kill a pack, you're effectively at full flashes all the time. We have a 1-link Frenzy here, but it's also coincidentally linked to Curse on Hit Poacher's Mark, so against boss fights, when I don't have Vengtars up and I need the mana on hit, this allows us to curse them with Poacher's Mark and get frenzy charges at the same time. It's great. Other links, I have a cast on damage taken, Summon Ice Golem, Projectile Weakness, and Vortex. Vortex is an AoE chilled ground effect, so it slows everybody down. It does a fair amount of damage as well. Not like insane, but it does hurt a little bit. The Ice Golem gives us an accuracy and critical strike chance, both of which we need. And then Projectile Weakness is a more multiplier. If something manages to trigger this, they take a lot more damage to actually devolve this, because it's not evolved yet for some reason. And we ripped it. But anyways, this gives you 53% increased damage taken from projectiles, which is a more multiplier. So you get to multiply all of your damage dealt by 1.53, which is huge. What else do we have? Other links, you have basically an entire 6-link to do whatever the hell you want with. I'm leveling up gems in this, and I have a blink arrow, so this is technically just a 1-link blink arrow. All of these other gems are empowers and enhances that I've been leveling up. As for the gear, your bow, you want the highest DPS bow you can get. This is the best DPS bow on standard. Brood Twine Mirrored Bow, you don't need this good of a bow. You can use a Chinsel, or you can use a 300 to 400 DPS Harbinger, and you'll do just fine. This is my actual bow. I don't own this. I'm borrowing this from a friend. He just was like, here, use this to run lab. I'm like, really? He's like, yep, okay. That's another reason why I'm not using the links, because they're shit colors, but I can't change those. This is my actual bow. It's 400 DPS, 410 DPS, crafted it myself. Brood Twine, I believe, is 606 DPS or so. Without Brood Twine, my DPS changes to just about 30k. With Brood Twine, it goes up to 48k, so it's like 40% better or something like that. It's pretty good. You don't need it though, obviously. I leveled without it. Other gear, your quiver, you want to use a rear guard, so you have a passive chance to block, so that when you use roomies, you get to go to block, attack block, and spell block, which is amazing. Huge amount of defensive properties gained from just this quiver and this flask. For the corruption, if you can get 20% of phys converted to lightning, that makes your blast rain deal 70% lightning and 30% fire. So your tooltip primarily becomes lightning damage, which is the goal here since we're stacking lightning pen. The higher block and spell block rolls you can get, the better, and proj damage, but it's mostly just for the block chance. The corruption's not that important. Other gear, amulet, you want fizz, ES, crit chance, crit multi, and any like resistances or stats you need. Or if you need accuracy as well, grab that somewhere. You will need one piece of accuracy gear on somewhere. Rings, I'm using diamond rings because I wanted the crit chance. You want ES, resistances, wed, and flat phase if you can get it. Other rings the same, ES, wed, and a little bit of res. Int is pretty nice. It does give you some hefty scaling. T1 int is 51 to 55. 55 int is equivalent to 11% maximum energy shield, which is the same as like 1.5 of these nodes, or this node itself. So that's a pretty useful node. If you can afford to not get resistances in that slot, grab intelligence, it helps a lot. Chest piece, get the highest CS you can. I crafted this myself, and then recrafted the suffixes a bunch until I finally hit T1 int. Definitely not needed, but the more ES you can get, the better. The more resistances you can get, the better as well. Gloves, this is where I got my accuracy roll, but same thing, you just want ES resistances, and attack speed can be nice here if you can grab it. If you can afford to lose the res slot, sure. Boots, you want Skyforce. If you can't afford Skyforce and you're trying to do a budget version, drop these for just ES boots with ES resistances, move speed, and then use an Eye of Trigula for the stun immunity. Basically just put all of the stats that you can't get on your amulet on your boots and you'll be fine. Until you can afford this. Belt, you want a crystal belt because it has the highest ES that you available. You want ES, you probably want resistances, and you might want strength on this as well. And then if you can get the penetrates 5% LE res while using a flask, sure, otherwise don't worry about it. It's very expensive to craft a belt like this. I think this belt cost me 1600 chaos to make myself using Essences of Hysteria, which was not very fun to do, but I did it anyway. Flask setups, I'm using a Taste of Hate, a Ruby Flask of Remove Bleed, because we're immune to elemental ailments, right? So we only need Remove Bleed and Remove Curse, and curses aren't really that much of a problem, so I just went for Remove Bleed. You do want a Ruby's Concoction, again, so you can reach block cap with a Flask plus Quiver, which is pretty huge. And then you want a Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. This is Legacy Surgeons, so I get a charge every time I deal a crit. And then you want a Vessel of Inktars. If you can get the penetration one, that is ideal. The conversion one is second best, and then lightning damage to attacks is third. But you definitely want to get the conversion one, because with the conversion flask up, our penetration goes up to 80% lightning penetration with an additional 14% penetration with weapons. That puts us at 94% lightning pen, which is just stupid. Just very, very stupid. But I would think that's everything. Other things to mention, this build's really fast, it's really fun. I've done every piece of content in the game that's currently available to me on standard with this build. If Breach Lords go core, I'll run them as well, but I'll have links to all the Guardians across the screen here, and Shaper himself. And if you want to see general map clears, just search for Blast Rain Pathfinder on my channel and you'll find all of them. I've done so many maps with this character. I can do Uber Labs in about 4 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so with this character, because with flasks up, which is the bottom of this, I have 186% move speed, which is pretty good. One thing I forgot, Uber Lab enchants. Helm enchant, you want Blast Rain has 75% chance for an additional blast. It explodes 4 times naturally, and then each attack has a roll 75% chance to get an additional explosion, so that puts you up to 5. The faster you attack, the more chances you have at proccing that additional explosion, which is 1.25 damage multiplier, which is 25% more. So if you can get that enchant, sure, get it. Glove enchant, it's kind of a preference. I like defensive enchant, so this one's when hit, it throws out either your projectile or your weapon that pierces and deals a huge chunk of damage. It actually does more tooltip DPS than my Blast Rain for some reason, which is just funny. It also leaves chilled ground, but there's 10 projectiles that go out in a big AoE Nova around you. Other options, you can use of Ire, which is also when hit. You can use of Fury, which is on attacks, like you throw out fire-based projectiles. I think of Ire is the best because it's lightning themed, same as our build. Boot enchant, you want 10% damage penetrates, 10% of LE res if you haven't killed recently. So that's like for boss fights, you gain an additional 10% LE pen against the boss itself. Since if you're not killing ads or anything, or if you're just fighting a single target, you get that 10% penetration, and that stacks everywhere. It's cold, lightning, and fire pen. which is pretty good. Other options, you can get the attack and cast speed if you've killed recently, you can get leech if you killed recently, you can do movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. It's really kind of a preference thing. I like this one. Penetration is the name of this build, so. But yeah, I think that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and that is DeMi out.